Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to e.RIS and VTScada, leveraging all your data. My name is Chris Little, and I am the Sales and Marketing Department of Trihedral Engineering. And today I am joined by Tim Cruz, the Product Manager at Erisa Engineering. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're glad to have you. We've been working together with Tim and also with Clyde Fernandez, who is the new business manager, one of the new business managers with Erisa. We've been working together over the last few months to basically bring this interface, this shared solution to the customers that we think is relevant. And this webinar is certainly one of the first major initiatives. So we're glad to have you both here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about, like the title implies, there's a lot of people now running more than one data-driven solution, either GIS or SCADA, work order management systems, and increasingly there is pressure to bring the data from those systems together. So specifically today we're going to talk about, first of all, we're going to talk about SCADA. That's my job. We're going to talk about what the superpowers of SCADA systems are, and then along the way tell you a little bit about the superpowers of VTScada specifically. And then Tim is going to talk about e.RIS, which is a platform that brings together data from multiple systems in a meaningful way, so that operators aren't looking through a dozen different interfaces. So, Tim, I think you'll agree that over the last few years, there's been a lot more pointed interest in this kind of thing, in this kind of solution. What do you think is driving that?
Well, I think it's really driven by two perspectives. One is the regulatory climate is always increasing, so there's always more and more pressure by regulatory agencies to ask and then want to see more and more data. But also, as everyone would attest to, pressures of running a business are also increasing. So people need access to more information. And as you are collecting more information, the tools that we used to put information together are getting stretched pretty thin. And so there's more data, more people asking for it, so you need new and better tools to help you manage all of that information.
That's great. And so very recently, e.RIS was able to include a custom interface to VTScada. We were able to work together to make that work, just to simplify that process. So we're really glad to join that roster of companies. So just a little bit of before we get started, just talk about a little bit of housekeeping. I'm sure many of you have already been to plenty of webinars like this, so bear with me. But you'll see on your little interface, your go-to webinar interface on the screen, which will probably be hovering in the top right-hand corner. There's a little box where you can enter a question. And if you have any questions throughout in response to anything that we've said, just enter it there, hit enter, and that'll go into a list, and Clyde will be watching that list, and he might be able to answer some things right away. But at the end of the presentation, he's going to throw those questions to us, and we're going to try to answer as many as we can in the time that we have. Our goal today is to wrap this up pretty quick, because I know you're all really busy. It's midweek. But for when we start answering questions, we will hang on and get as many. We'll have a tractor pull, as many questions as we can get answered, as long as people are on the line, because we have time. So if you need to jump off at the end of the presentation proper, that's fine. We'll send everybody the answers to the questions. Very good. And also, you'll probably notice on that same little interface, there's two relevant documents. One is sort of the standard data sheet for what we're talking about, for the combination of VTScada and e.RIS, just for a quick reference. And also, you'll see a PDF version of all the slides. So if you want to download those, you can. Those will also, links to those will be included in an automatic email that will come shortly, as well as let me just double check that. We are recording. So recording of this webinar will be automatically sent to all of you as well. So if you know somebody who wasn't able to make it today, then you'll very easily be able to share that with them. Anything else, Tim, before we get started?
No, I think that was a great introduction. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you. So let's talk about SCADA. Now, I've got a little bit of a challenge because I look at the great turnout today, and it's almost split down the middle between people who are intimately familiar with VTScada and have used us for decades, and people who maybe are hearing us described for the first time, or at least maybe they've just heard us mentioned. So I'm going to try to tell you about what's really important. I'm going to try not to read all of this, everything on every slide, because you'll be able to look at those at your leisure. But I really want to touch on some of the really important differentiators. So really what I want you to take away from the slide you're looking at right now is that we've had a really good couple of years. We've been around for 32. We've had consistent growth every year. We are not carrying any debt. We don't have any venture capital. We do not lay off in bad times. We invest during those times. And in the last few years, we've managed to open up a number of new offices, including just this year, offices in Los Angeles and Chicago. So we're spanning North America coast to coast, which is great. But we also have an office in Aberdeen, Scotland, where we do a lot of work with oil and gas. And so, yeah, it's been a good 2 years. And now, one of the things that we've always done well, something that really, especially 32 years ago, helped us really break into the market, was being able to help people with existing SCADA platforms that were either getting old or they weren't happy with, to move to a better system for the least amount of money. So we did that by adopting open connectivity. Basically we have built-in drivers standard with the product that allow you to natively connect to a very wide variety of standard and proprietary PLCs and RTUs. So basically you can swap out your software and keep your hardware. We are hardware agnostic. That's an important thing to say. We don't sell hardware. We're not married to anybody's hardware. We want you to keep what you have and move on. Similarly, from your old system, if you've got an old system that you're crossing your fingers and hoping it gets by another few months, we're able to pull out the tag database, which saves a lot of time and reduces a lot of risk, and simply import that tag database. We do a quick conversion and build you a new application and hand it to your integrator or the end user, whoever's doing the work, and allow them to build a fresh application based on your existing IO database. That saves a lot of time. And the new thing that's brand new is we are able to actually let you keep your process history. So what we're talking about today with all of these things is data. How do we protect your data? Being able to see the long game is important. That it's more than just, SCADA is more than just keeping people from having to run from one location to the other, which was the old superpower of SCADA. Now it's as much about having that whole process history there to look at. So you're able to export your tag database history from your old historian, do a conversion. You basically follow the instructions in our help, and then you can actually import that into your new application. So that's a great way to retain the value from your old system that you can invest in your new modern SCADA system. The most important thing I think that's important to know about VTScada is that in 32 years we've been building on the same product. I mean, you wouldn't recognize it from even just a few years ago, but it has been an incremental change on the same product. Vastly new features. We're always releasing new versions, new features, keeping up with new trends, but never at any point do we say, I'm sorry, we don't make version 7 anymore. I know you just made it 2 years ago, but we've got this wonderful version 8. But you'll have to rebuild everything in order to use it. That's not part of our business model. We're all about forward compatibility, always giving you a migration path. So once you've converted from an older system that basically aged out after 10 years, you have got an indefinite way forward. And one of the things that really makes that possible is that we are a fully integrated product. Everything's built in. When you download the 200 megabyte installer from our FTP site, you get everything. In about 4 minutes, you can install that, and you've got all of the core SCADA features that you need. We own all of that technology. We're not dependent on anybody's third-party this or third-party that. So we're not susceptible for people to retire something that we depend on. We control it. We built it. Every time you upgrade to a new version of VTScada, you get the latest version of that thing. Everything works in lockstep. You won't have an alarm dialer that no longer talks to your SCADA system anymore, because those two things are the same thing. So that means that everything can move forward in lockstep. And that means you can do some pretty interesting things. The upshot is that you can save on hardware. With fewer computers, you can do more in terms of having redundancy that guarantees uptime. So if a server dies, another server takes over automatically. And then when the primary server comes back, that data gets backfilled. So not only do you have operator uptime, but again, that precious historical data is automatically curated. So if you've got 3 machines, you've got 3 complete copies of your historical database, your configuration history, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, all of your user accounts, everything associated with that application is backed up in real time to every other application in a very efficient way that doesn't clog your network. But still, not every machine is pulling all your I/O, just one. You've got a server list. So your primary is doing that, then your secondary if it fails over. So again, that just protects your data, makes sure that that it's available locally and that it's being backed up in a global way. Also, network failover. Whoops. So the actual lines to your communication themselves, or your I/O devices themselves. If your network fails, you can fail over to another network. If your PLC dies, you can fail over to a backup PLC using our driver multiplexer. That's a fairly unique thing. And like we talked about before, everything's built in, including the historian. So VTScada is built around our own historian. And because every instance of VTScada, every server, thick client server, has its own configured historian, that means you are able to do interesting things like if site A is for water and site B is for wastewater, then you can make database A for the local historian for site A, and then and have a backup over on site B. So if either of these machines dies, the other is able to take over for the other. And then when the other one comes back, it's able to backfill data. So you don't have to have a dedicated server for this or a dedicated server for that. And in fact, you can also do very complicated things in terms of load sharing to make sure that no one computer is being overworked. So again, the database, our built-in historian. Every application that you build has one built in. So like we were going to talk about in a moment, SCADA, the superpower of SCADA is making data available to operators to manage their mission-critical process and alarms, but also it's there to keep the data safe, to curate that data. And so we allow you to do that using our own built-in historian. If you need to, because of your business rules, have a secondary format for if you need to log to Oracle because that's part of your business model, or Microsoft SQL Server, we can allow you to do that as well. That's very simple. You'll have to purchase and install those separately. But VTScada is free, it's built into the product, takes no configuration. But the other important thing, and this is where the rubber meets the road with this presentation, is that we want to make that data available we don't want to be greedy, because even though our historian is proprietary, we are able to make that data freely available to systems that need it through either ODBC, OPC, we can be a client or a server, web services, which I think is the basis, I'm certain is the basis of the interface between us and e.RIS or SNMP. So again, we want to guarantee that it's safe, but we want to make sure that people who need it can get at it. So one of the things we make that available to operators very easily is through trending. We have an excellent trending interface. People can actually click on items on the screen to bring up live trends. It's very simple. You don't need to bring in an integrator to build a trend group. It's a much more efficient use of everyone's time for an operator to build a trend that suits their needs and save it for reuse. You can also add encrypted operator notes to that timeline to explain anomalous data. It's just a very simple interface. And integrated mapping, that's one I often forget to talk about, so I made sure I put it in the slide. If you've used Google Maps or any of those kinds of solutions, then you'll have no trouble navigating this built-in mapping. It downloads them automatically, but if your system is eventually going to be offline, then you can either use, we have a built-in tile downloader or you can cache them while you're online, and then they stay cached forever. So you could simply go in and load all the slides you need for your area, and then take your machine and take it offline. So we're all talking about managing complexity. That's one of the goals of e.RIS, but also it's in SCADA. This is a very hotly discussed topic. So, for example, alarms. It's become very easy and cheap to put an alarm on everything. And while you're at it, why not make it critical? Because shouldn't everything be? But the problem is, the more and more alarms you put on things, if everything's critical, then nothing is, and you've just got noise, and you're basically training operators to ignore what could be really important alarms. So one of the ways in which we do that is, as you can see on the screen here, not all operators have the same visual acuity. Some see colors in different ways or not at all. So we're able to organize our alarms list that you see here using color, for those who can see it, using numbers, using symbols, and using sound, so that regardless of your specific viewing needs of your end users, people can immediately see the priority and the status of their alarms. Another great way to sort of manage complexity is shelving. So if you know you're going to take a PLC offline for a while and it's going to start firing alarms, you can shelve that alarm for a period of time. That way you don't forget to turn it back on again. It's still recorded in the event database, which is encrypted forever and ever, but it won't bother anyone. Again, it won't be noise. It's distracting from something real that could happen. And it also includes, and all these things are based on the ISA standard for alarms management, ISA 18.2, and you can read up on that. It's all available on their website. The other ways that you can help to eliminate nuisance alarms is we have these auditing reports. So this one is for bad actors. So you can see just on that little graph there, you can see that this alarm is fired twice. It seems pretty reasonable in the context. This one's fired 5 times. It's a little strange. This one's fired 14. We've had 14 instances of this alarm. Odds are something weird's going on. We need a human to go look at that and make sure that we solve the systemic problem. Similarly, we've got, whoops, I keep trying to click on things. Similarly, we have an alarm flood report, which basically shows clusters of alarms, showing basically what happened first, showing causality. So every time we get this alarm cloud, this alarm flood, it always starts here, and then it sets off that. So you can, again, start to go in and look at the systemic problem so that we're not just firing off alarms that are clouding the system. And this is my favorite. I hope it's big enough for you to see. But on the right-hand side, you'll see what ISA 18.2 recommends in terms of the distribution of priority. Just a little 5% of red, and then 15% for high priority, and then everything else is just a warning. But of course, most of our demonstrations are meant to show off alarms, so ours is configured a little differently. This is our demo application that I stole this from, and that's what actually has been occurring. So very quickly, you can look at it and see that this is a system that's out of whack. And as with all of the standards laid out in 18.2, the idea is to encourage your team to make decisions about what's important so that you can put in place an effective strategy for managing that. See, we've got lots of questions coming in already. That's great. So the other thing about alarms is that people are not necessarily all sitting in front of a view screen all day, like waiting for something to start blinking red. They are out in the field, they are working, they're doing things. So the important thing is for the alarms to find them, either on their phones by calling them up and using text-to-speech and saying there's an alarm here, and allowing you to log in securely and acknowledge, or sending you an email or an SMS text message. And believe it or not, we still support pagers because they're still out there. And the other is thin clients. We have an HTML5 client that can be identical to a fully installed runtime license. So you can look at this client from a browser on your PC or on your laptop or on your phone or your tablet, wherever that you can get connected. And we license that a little bit differently. The standard software is licensed by installed Windows computer, whereas the thin clients are licensed by concurrent user. And this, the other thing is that it takes seconds to set up. Just a few clicks to set that up, not counting the time it takes you to configure your firewall. So this is our development environment. So when we're at trade shows, I often like to open this up and just invite people to build a screen of their choice. I'll open up a blank page and say, would you like to design a page? And they'll right away know that this is very similar to the Microsoft Ribbon interface, so they know how that works. It's context sensitive. On the left here, we have all sorts of widgets that you can drag on. When they ask me, well, how do you connect it? I'll often say, well, what's your best guess? And they'll right-click on the object, and they'll see link to, and the idea is, like we say at the top of the page, everything, the goal is to make it instantly intuitive, so that it takes very little time for a new integrator or a new user to get up and running. And we have built-in graphics. Everything that you see here is out of the box. We want to make it easy to not just create good-looking screens that line up and are all matching, have a similar look and feel. We've got style tags that allow you to set important look and feel properties in one place. And it's just very satisfying to use. And I think I just threw this in here as I used to have a slide on this, but one of the things that's really unique is we have native version control. So as you use this, you'll be developing online. We don't take VTScada offline. That's something that comes from the oil and gas industry. No downtime. So basically you're working with live data, and when you're ready and when you've tested on a local machine, you can roll those changes out to all networked machines. And if you need to, for any reason, roll back, we have a very robust, very easy to use version control utility that allows you to roll back any configuration change. As well, look up any change made by any user on any version, on any server in the system. So it makes it very simple to track down who did what and why in an encrypted way. And we have a built-in scripting language, I should say that too. This is all drag and drop, but everything that you drag and you drop is writing code under the surface, and you can actually write that code yourself. And so for highly customized configuration, you can do that, which requires a little bit of training. So basically, just to summarize, we make it easy to connect to your I/O, whatever kind of I/Os that you have. We make it easy for operators to use the data that we collect to manage their critical processes and alarms in an effective way. And we also are very good at keeping logged data safe through redundancy, through real-time synchronization, to make sure that if something terrible happens to one machine, not all your eggs are in one basket. If you haven't got time to do a tape backup, you've got another form of backup that's inherent to the system. And then we also make it a priority to be able to share data with other business platforms like e.RIS. We also make it easy, just as the last thing, to get started. If you'd like to try VTScada, we have a free 50 IO industrial license. That's not a trial, not temporary. You can put it on an industrial site and let her go. It's under 50 IO and plus a thin client. But that's pretty much it. Oh, except that we've very recently gotten news that Rocky View County in Calgary is currently putting in place this solution right now. Right now, they've already have a working connection between their the new VTScada system that they're putting in and their e.RIS server, and they've confirmed that there's data connection, and they're now in the process of creating customized screens and reports. So we're very happy to hear that. And that's probably about as much as you want to hear me talking on and on. So I'm going to throw over to you, Tim.
Okay.
Do you have any questions, Tim, about any of that before you move on?
No. Very impressive. Did you hand me presentation?
Oh, that's right. That helps. One moment, please.
Yeah, that would. I'm scrambling over here trying to figure out, okay, how do I know which screen I'm sharing? There we go.
There we go. And we have successfully passed the ball.
And that's the one I think we want to see. So do you see my Eramosa slide?
Yep, I can see the Eramosa slide now.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Chris. So, as you noted, probably a lot of our guests here today already know a lot about VTScada and probably understand what a cool product it is. And that's one of the reasons why we were really excited to reach out to you all and make sure that we connected e.RIS to VTScada as one of the supported data sources within the data management platform that we call e.RIS. Since most of you may not know who we are a company named Erisa, but we've been in business 20 years, not quite the 32 that Chris talked about. But we have over 100 employees. And in addition to developing and selling and supporting e.RIS, we do some other things as well. You can see them on the screen, but probably the largest thing that we do is we are actually SCADA integrators. So we have teams of people that go out and work with individuals at our offices that you can see there and install SCADA solutions. And we're excited that not only are we partnering with e.RIS and VTScada at that level, but that Calgary project that we just talked to you about, Rocky View, our team is actually assisting in the implementation of the VTScada as well. So it's kind of a joint effort at that place. What I really wanted to explain to people today, though, is what makes e.RIS different and why is it important to understand what those differences are and what does e.RIS even do. So the most important thing is we approach data management differently, like the slide says. And so what does that really mean? Well, as Chris mentioned at the very beginning, we're not just trying to connect to a single source or a single system like a SCADA historian, but we're really trying to capture data and integrate data from the enterprise. So all of the applications that might be available within a water or wastewater or any environment, be it oil and gas or any other manufacturing facility. The slide up here is really tailored around water and wastewater because that's a core function or core feature of ours. But you can see around the outside are a bunch of different data sources that hopefully you recognize. And the leave behind is, what does e.RIS do? Well, we help you analyze, visualize, and manage information and data from no matter where it lives. And so that's really the heart of what we do. We have a whole bunch of tools that we'll talk about in a little bit, but that at the core is it. Those three things: managing, analyzing, and visualizing information from multiple sources, not just one. And so what does that look like in reality? Well, this is kind of what a typical e.RIS implementation might look like. On the left, you have data sources. We've got the VTScada there as the historian, but e.RIS may be connected to a laboratory system. There may be some meter data that's coming from a meter data management system. There may be a database that's storing manually entered data that people are collecting through daily rounds, both morning, afternoon, overnight shifts. And in the middle is the e.RIS, which is doing what we talk about, analyzing, visualizing, and managing the information. What's really important to understand, though, is that e.RIS is just connected to those different data sources. We're not permanently making another copy of the data, but we are simply retrieving information the same way your web browser retrieves information from the internet whenever you do an internet search. We're just going and getting information from those source systems when you need it. So we're not creating permanent data storage, but doing connections. And why is that important? Well, that means that we can drop in an e.RIS virtual appliance or even a physical appliance in about a day and get you working with those data sources, get you connected and get you doing, visualizing, analyzing, and managing data within a matter of days or even a week, not months. And once you're connected, well, what can you do? Well, we have an e.RIS web data platform that allows you to connect data that exists outside of your organization. So if you have data that's being collected and stored in cloud databases, or maybe you want to connect to publicly available data sources like maybe weather data, in Canada, the hydro or electrical rates in the US, maybe you have some water quality data, or maybe you just want to share data between yourself and a neighbor. We can help you connect those different data sources together without, once again, copying the data. And ultimately, you can also use e.RIS as a data brokering platform. So we can take data from source systems like VTScada and push that to a GIS application or your maintenance management system, or maybe some virtualization tools, or think way outside the box, some artificial intelligence or some machine learning applications that may come down the pike, and use the information that exists in all of your source systems as a unified, cohesive source for understanding what's going on within your organization. So that's a big picture of what e.RIS kind of looks like and what we're trying to accomplish. So what specifically do we do? Well, we have all different kinds of modules and tools within our application. You know, some of them overlap with what VTScada, you know, Chris mentioned their ISA 18.2 standard alarm management tools. Well, we also have alarm management tools that work with those vendors who have alarms in historians that don't have those built-in alarm tools. So the other guys in the industry who aren't as progressive as VTScada, we have built alarm management tools that do the same thing that Chris talked about. We can do reports. That's really what we do a lot of. VTScada does trends really, really well. We also can do trends. We can also handle all that manual data that you are collecting and maybe putting into Excel spreadsheets. And just like anything, everybody likes to see pictures. We have dashboards. We also have some kind of unique tools that a lot of reporting solutions don't have. We have a built-in electronic logbook tool. I know VTScada has a logbook or a logging capability as well. I think ours is a little bit unique, and I have a screen demonstration a little bit on where it interacts between our mobile tool and our online tool, and hopefully I think that'll give you a perspective of how we're a little bit different. We also, since we're connected to asset systems and maintenance systems, we have a tool that helps you organize and look at assets that are stored within different source data sets or different applications, and use those to build projects and capital improvement plans. We have a very powerful calculation and algorithm engine that allows you to do a lot of analytics built in within the e.RIS engine. One of those applications is our monitor data, which is simply triggering on and notifying people when data from any system violates either a preset limit or maybe violates a statistical algorithm. Maybe a 30-day moving average is a little out of whack, or you know, maybe some other type of averages are not really where they should be, and it notifies and brings people together and lets them know, hey, there's something probably amiss within the application. So it's a way to help bring and manage by exception rather than trying to look at all the data and wherever it exists. We also have had quite a bit of market success. Now, we haven't been around for 32 years, and e.RIS has not been around even for the 20 years that Erisa has been around, but we've been around a while. We have a pretty nice install base. We have, you know, over 70, we call them partners, who are using e.RIS to do lots of different things. We're mostly focused in the water and wastewater industry, but we have other people who are using it in the oil and gas and the renewable energy space. So we have some people that lie outside water and wastewater that are also using e.RIS. We also can deliver this in two different ways. We can put it on premise, or we can deliver it as a cloud hosted solution as well. So there's some flexibility on where it runs and where it's stored. But since most of you on this webinar probably have never seen e.RIS, I didn't want to leave you, and I didn't want to just show you PowerPoint presentations, but I also didn't want to try to mess with a live demo. So hopefully I've got the best of both worlds. I do have a little bit of an e.RIS demonstration, but I did it as a recorded video clip using a capture software. So I'm going to do two things to show you how easy e.RIS is to use. One is I'm going to show you how to build a report using our online report builder tool from a group of VTScada tags. And then second, I'm going to show you how our electronic logbook works both with our mobile app, how it works with our web app as well. So let me jump out of where I'm at and start the video of the screen capture. So here we go. This is what an e.RIS looks like. This is a demonstration system. I'm landed on a dashboarding page, and I'm going to click Start here, and we're going to jump in and build a report. So I grab my report builder and simply put a name for this report. Obviously, we're partnered with VTScada on this webinar, VTScada report. Right now, I'm just grabbing a report template. This just tells me how I'm going to lay this out. And now I'm grabbing a couple of objects where I'm going to put a chart on the top. So I'm going to build a pretty little chart on the top of the page. Now I'm looking up some VTScada tags that I had saved. They drop into that chart. And now for consistency, I'm going to put a table on this same report. I'm going to find those same tags. So type in VT, get the SCADA tags. Since this is a table, I also want to put some summarization at the bottom. So I'm going to put a max, a min, and an average on the bottom of that report so that people can see what's going on. And that's as simple as it is. Click Save, and now I'm just going to run to the report interface, find that in the dropdown, and do that just simply by typing VT. Since I grabbed daily data, I'm going to run this for a little bit more than 1 day. It's not really fun to see a chart with one data point. So I'm going to run this for last week, and I click Send, and the report runs. I can then, from this point, export that to a PDF, and let me go back just a little bit, and there is a PDF of that report. Simply put. So you can see with less than a minute, I was able to take data that existed in a historian and turn it to a publishable report with a chart and a graph, max, mins, and averages at the bottom. So a quick little example of how easy it is to run a report or build a report using our report builder tool. The next example is the next report is the electronic logbook example. So I'm going to first start on my mobile phone. It'll be the mobile, and then we're going to transition to the same web interface that we saw previously. So just going to click Start. So this is my mobile. I clicked on the default logbook, and I just clicked on that little plus in the bottom. Now I'm adding a couple of categorization. We call them labels. So I'm pretending that this happened at the aeration basin last night. So I'm on my phone. It's in the middle of the night. There was an issue with the blowers. Mentioning in here that I also submitted a work order. Was able to do that on a different screen with a different app for the work order. Obviously, this is all pretend. I also was not at the plant, as you'll see here in a minute. I'm going to take a photo. That's my other monitor. Smoke and mirrors there. But there's a couple of blowers. And I hit saved. It's now uploading the photo, and it's synchronizing with the e.RIS server that I'm connected to. So now, when I go back to the web interface and I look at the electronic logbook, well, there's the log entry that I created. There's the picture. I click on it. There's my mobile picture. But it's now the next day, and now I want to let everybody know that what was that work order. So what was that work order number? So I'm going to type in the work order number, showing that it was assigned to a crew and which crew it was. So I'm putting in that information as well. And I'm going to simply hit save at the end. Pretty slow typist, I apologize. And now, since these are related, I'm going to link these two together. So we have a simple linking tool. I'm going to relate the first one to the second one. So I create a link between the two, close that, and now you can see that the work order is now linked to that second one. If I were to open up the second one, it would show that the first one was related to it as well. So in the few minutes that I had there, I wanted to give you a flair and a flavor of what e.RIS looked like. I hope that was a little bit of a taste. Would love if you have an interest to see more. Obviously, I can spend all afternoon showing you e.RIS and what it can do, but I was going to stop there and let's throw it open to questions.
That's great. Thanks, Tim. I really, that was a great demonstration. So over to you, Clyde.
Thank you for that, Chris. A very good morning and good afternoon to all of you out there. My name is Clyde Fernandez. I work closely with Tim Cruz here at e.RIS from Erisa Engineering. I'm just going through some questions that have come through, Chris, and I believe this will be for Tim Cruz. What type of data sources does e.RIS connect to? And I'm just going to get the other one on this one too. Can you connect to any web type of data? So any data over the internet, can you connect to that data too?
Sure. So we connect to most of the major data systems that are within most organizations. So we have successfully connected to billing systems, to meter data management systems, laboratory systems. We've connected to a whole bunch of SCADA historians. Obviously, VTScada is one of them. We've connected to a whole bunch of just relational databases that, or databases that have archived data. So we call them homegrown historians. So there's a database with a bunch of data in it, and we'll connect to that. We connect to maintenance management systems. We've connected to, the most radical one was a parking management system. Connected to vehicle management systems. So from an on-premise, there's really not much we haven't connected to and been able to use information from that. From the perspective of web data, so we can connect to web data in a couple of ways. We can either connect directly to a web database that you might have primary access to, and we can sometimes connect to that using some secure technology. We can, depending on the vendor, they might have an open application programming interface. We might be able to connect using some other tools. That's one way we can do a direct connection, or we can also use what I showed in that one screen, which is called our e.RIS web data platform, which allows us to create cloud-to-cloud connections and then use that e.RIS cloud as a secure connection back to a local e.RIS that may be stored on your premise. So a couple of ways to handle that. We're doing that cloud-based and also on-prem just about, we're doing the on-premise everywhere we have e.RIS. We're doing cloud probably at about at least 25 to 30% of the clients that we have. They're integrating cloud-based data into their local data sets.
Thank you for that, Tim. I'm just going to go through another question here. I believe this was on your slide, Tim Cruz. It's about the One Water and the IoT that was on the slide.
Yeah, so One Water is a company that we have partnered with, Erisa has partnered with. We actually are a co-patent holder of the technology. One Water builds and provides solutions that do pressure monitoring in a water distribution system using instrumentation that's built onto the hydrant or the rod that's into the hydrant, and that instrumentation can be used while the hydrant is in use. So it can be used for firefighting, it can be used, and the valve can be turned off. It doesn't need to be pressurized. So it can be used in cold climates, and that then information is then stored or is read locally, transmitted via cellular connection up to a cloud hosted environment, and then e.RIS is then used as the data visualization tool for that data from that, or you can use that data and pull it directly into an e.RIS on premise. Either way, it works in either method. It's a little hard to describe without a picture, I apologize. But yeah, it's a partnering company that we work with that's doing pressure monitoring in water distribution systems.
That sounds really exciting, Tim. I believe this question is for you, Chris. How many customers does VTScada currently have?
Gosh, I don't have a specific number for the grand total. I know that a year or two ago, we drank some champagne because we had taken on our 1,000th wastewater specific customer. Now, each of those customers, many of those customers had multiple systems, but that was now I think that number's up to 1,300 just in the wastewater industry around the world. The others, we haven't assembled a specific number for that, but I would say that the after water and wastewater, where we put most of our oil and gas, where we put most of our marketing time and effort, oil and gas would be about the second, power generation, but I'd have to go and put together that number.
Thank you for that, Chris. And I'll turn it over back to you. I've got some questions on the chat window that I've responded to, but over to you, Chris.
Great. And the other thing I'd say, if you want to go to our website, we have a number of maps of installations around the world, so you can actually zoom in using a mapping tool and sort of see where the clusters of where we are and get a sense of our coverage worldwide. So that's something you can go and look at now at VTScada.com. So there's a few other questions I see on here. I'm just going to take back the presenter mode here and share my screen. And one is, are the predefined shelving times built into the alarms page? So a moment ago, I spoke of, oh, that is me, good. I spoke about the ability to shelve alarms. I was going to jump over here to an actual wastewater demo application. And let's just go to the alarms page. Actually, I can on any page I can click in the top right-hand corner and jump to the alarm page. So I'm just going to. Oh, go ahead.
Now you can click on the screen, Chris, and not advance the slides.
Exactly. Yeah, I could do exactly what I've been trying to do all this time. So you'll see here.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead.
So you'll see on the, there's a bit of a latency here, so bear with us. When you right-click on an active alarm, I can hit Shelve, and you can see from the drop-down menu, you could pick from either 5 minutes all the way up to a day from the predefined list. And you can put in until a specific time and date, or you could say indefinitely. But I would say most people would avoid. The whole point is to actually set an exit time for when that alarm comes back online. Where are the audits stored? Well, right now you'd access them by going up here in the top menu and opening up the various different alarms for bad actors. This application hasn't been running very long, so I haven't got as much to show you. Basically, you would export those as screen captures. Right now, these reports don't have an output method. other than just sort of being real-time readouts. But VTScada does have on the built-in alarms page a variety of alarms-based reports, and you can create your own alarms-based ad hoc reports, ad hoc or scheduled reports for that as well. Is VTScada tag-based or screen-based? It's tag-based. So as I mentioned very briefly, to have a VTScada application, you need to buy one license that you install on a Windows computer. So that could either be a runtime license or a development runtime license. They're both the same installer. The key is what determines, when you install it, you enter a key. And that key determines whether that's runtime or development runtime. It determines what the tag count is, and also whether any integrated optional components. So like thin clients, which we talked about, the mobile client, that's built in. We are the server. You don't need any other kind of server, but it is optional. So the key would determine whether you've chosen that option. And the thin clients are licensed by numbers of concurrent users. So you can buy a single license. I think then there's a 5-pack. So 5 different people on 5 different devices at any given time. As long as those users have the, as long as you have the 5-pack license, as long as those users are authorized to do so, and as long as you haven't exceeded 5 concurrent connections, then it doesn't matter what device you use, again, whether it's a PC, whether it's a mobile device. So there's sort of 2 different models, one for the installed license, which you must have one of. Something has to be the server. Something has to be the historian. And then the thin clients, which are basically connections into that. And the alarm dialer, there's a question, is the alarm dialer built into VTScada? Yes, the alarm dialer is VTScada. And in fact, I have something I forgot to mention, I think it's buried in a slide, and that is we also now support Twilio. So it's getting harder and harder to find voice modems that will work with SCADA systems. And in fact, a lot of data lines now are supporting, the actual ISPs are not supporting data lines, they're all voice. So it's becoming increasingly hard, although we definitely support modems and we always will. If you're in a situation, like maybe in a hosted situation in the cloud, you're in a server farm, where it's physically difficult to use physical modems, you can use Twilio, which is a third-party interface to a web-based system that will allow you to do all the functionality of voice modem, VoIP, and all that stuff without having to actually buy a physical device. But again, we support those physical devices. Does it support VoIP? Yes. Are the graphics object or vector-based? Both. We have vector-based objects, and we also have sort of PNG-based objects. The advantage with one of them being is that we can create a lot of our widgets, for example, in grayscale, so that you can basically use tag data to drive the look and feel. And that allows you to do things like, let me open up. These are 2 different screens. This is the tiled page menu navigation system here. This is up top here. This is an example of, I guess, what we would colloquially call amongst ourselves, we call it a high def view. And down below is what you probably, many of you recognize as being more of a high performance view, which is something that's becoming much talked about in both ISA 101 and just there's a book based on this. And the idea is to be able to create graphics and create a view of your system that is very dull as long as everything's going well. And when things start going badly, color and sound and movement starts to become introduced. And the idea is to sort of focus the user on the problem immediately. And so our built-in drivers, some of them are vectors, and some of them, I'll open up the Idea Studio, and some of them are graphics, and they basically allow a grayscale object to accept tag data in order to change its color, change its opacity, change its position, that kind of thing. Also, if you have any images that you basically just want to drag into your system, we support that as well. If we go in here again, you'll see that this interface this is a real quick and dirty interface. You go take a picture of a thing, drag it right off your desktop, and then draw stuff on top of it. So you can also add your own PNGs in addition to all of the vector-based shapes. The resolution, how does the resolution work on the mobile device? Basically, any way you want it to. Let me go back to my presentation real quick. It's the easiest way to show that. So right here on this slide, you'll notice that you can see the view that's identical to the one that you'd see on a PC. And so that little wastewater system right here might seem small, but you can pinch your way into that and look up close and personal at any part of that page. Or you can create a custom page that's built for the size of the screen that you're using. The alarms page can be native to the device. And you'll see right here is something we call the MIC. And the MIC is another way to view the system. So for on very small screens, I used to have an iPhone 5, very small screen, fit great in my pocket. You could, instead of bringing up the whole interface as if you had a giant screen, basically you could see a tag and trend view. So this represents a specific page, which you'll see listed at the top. And these are all the tags that are listed on that page. And by clicking on the icons on the left, you can see their values on the right in the green area, or red. And on the left, you just click on that and open up, add them to the trends, much like you do in our trend viewer. If you click on objects on the running application that are data-driven, they'll automatically open up in the trend viewer, and you could do that here as well. So that makes sure that you can use this on a very small screen and have a very meaningful interface. But similarly, you can actually set, if you're looking at VTScada through a thin client on a variety of different devices, and you're moving from a PC to a large screen laptop or what have you, you can actually decide, if you know what all the screens are going to be uniform, you can make VTScada configured specifically for that size and lock it down. If you know you're going to be using a variety of different sizes, you can make that more dynamic so that VTScada will resize itself depending on the device that you're looking at. And I think that's all the questions for me, except I see somebody say Moccasin Bend wastewater is 2 weeks away from an install in Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's great. Glad to hear it. Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions that pertain to me.
Well, man, those are some technical questions. Nice job, Chris.
No, thanks. You too. Well, I think, Tim, is there anything that, as sort of a footnote to our conversation that to sort of sum up what we've been talking about?
Just thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to showcase how we work together. I think we both have some very exciting products, and it's great to share the spotlight with such a very great company. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been really great working with both of you, and I was really excited to see the demonstration today, and I look forward to going forward. And here's our contact information. This is the last page of the slide that you can download right now, or we'll email it to you. And I'm certain we've both had to sort of skip very quickly through this information. So I'm sure Tim will be more than happy to do a one-on-one webinar, or if you're local, drop by and visit you, and so would we. I do webinars all the time for people all over. My sales territory is Ontario and Quebec. So anyone in those areas who'd like to really get a personal introduction to VTScada, I'm more than happy to do that. So please be in touch. And thank you, everybody, for your time. I know this is valuable business time. I'll let you get back to work. Have a great day. And thanks, Clyde. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Chris.
Good afternoon.